Last night, I pulled 37 and a half pounds of tomatoes out of my freezer. Let me tell you how much room I have left in my freezer now. It's fantastic. Anyway, it is time to get on with the tomato sauce today. Welcome to Grow and Preserve. I'm Carter. I'm glad you're here today. It's going to be an exciting day, so let's get started. All right, let's get started with the onions. The recipe I'm following today is it's loosely based on seasoned tomato sauce, which is on page 364 in the Ball book. So I'll link the book below. I say loosely because I don't really add all of their seasonings. I don't want it to come out being a spaghetti sauce. I want it more an all-purpose kind of sauce that I can use. So we're going to start with the onions. It says for 10 pounds of tomatoes, you need 2.5 cups of finely chopped onions. So I have 37 and a half pounds. So I'm going to use about 9.5 cups of onions, and then I'm going to throw mine in the oven and roast them up. I think it gives it a much sweeter flavor. And I am doing my sauce in pints because that's the way we use it. And I am saving all of my onion skins today because I'm going to be making broth here in the next couple of weeks. So I'm just going to take these off. Put them, actually I'll take them off. I'll wash them first before I put them in that bag. So let's get out a whole bunch of onions and see what it takes to make 9.5 cups. I am also not going to finely chop mine. So I may actually go a little bit over on the cups. And then when they come out of the oven, after being roasted, I'll throw them in. So I'm actually not going to finely chop mine. One, because it just does me in with my eyes. Two, because I'm going to throw them in the oven and roast them. So I want a little bit of body there so they don't come out just total mush. And then when we go to blend this up, again, I'm loosely following the directions. I'm not putting it through a tomato mill. I actually like a little bit of texture in my sauce, so it's more like a crushed tomato texture. But if you like it really smooth, you can stick it in a Vitamix, you can put it through a tomato mill. You can spend a lot longer with the stick blender than I'm going to do today, and it'll be delicious, it'll be smooth. I like that crushed tomato texture. I like to know what I'm eating, you know. When I see the little chunks in there, I want to know, I want to still be able to tell that that was a onion or a hunk of garlic. So that's the way I'm going to do mine today. You can do yours to whatever texture you prefer. I'm going to get the rest of these onions chopped up, and we'll be back before we put them in the oven.
Well, maybe it was fate when you walked in the door. I could have sworn I've seen your face before. So glad that you said hi, 'cause I was way too shy. What would have happened if you just had passed me by the night? We keep on drinking, keep on wishing for someone else.
All right, now that all the onion tears are done, I have 2 trays of onions here. I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of avocado oil before we put them in the oven to roast. And I'm also going to chop up some garlic, and I'm going to put that on one of the trays as well. Spot over here for it. All right, let's get the garlic ready. was at Costco yesterday getting the onions, and I thought I was going to grab a bag of their organic peeled garlic, but that was out as well. There were lots of things out at Costco yesterday. I mean, lots of things out that were on my list. So, I don't know what's going on, but anyway, I'm gonna have to peel my own garlic today. Which is not my favorite task, but it's doable. Avocado oil, that's another thing that was out at Costco yesterday. That's becoming harder and harder to find. I don't know if you can hear all of that. That is my husband David and his friend Rod, who was an engineer. They're downstairs shoring up the floor somehow, or I don't know what they're doing exactly, but David is concerned that he didn't build the floor quite strong enough for all the weight I'm putting on the canning jars. So they're bracing something somehow, so there's no telling what it's going to look like when I get back down there. We'll see. I have one of these. It's from Pampered Chef. It's a little garlic peeler. I haven't used it in a long time. I don't remember being particularly happy with it, but let's see. Oh, well, okay. That worked just fine. I'm good with that. So I'm just going to chop off the little root ends, and I'll run them through there. So we're pressure canning today because we have all these onions and the garlic in here. We are going to be adding a little bit of lemon juice. I have looked everywhere and it still says that you ought to do that. So I don't mind the taste of lemon. In fact, I think it adds a kind of a brightness to the sauce. I know a lot of people don't want to do it. My suggestion would be to use let me show you this. If I were not going to add the lemon juice, I would follow, this is from the Clemson Extension Service. I can put a link to this down below. This is on preserving onions and garlic because they are low acid foods. And what they say, if I were preserving an entire jar of onions, is to process the pints or quarts for 40 minutes. So the recipe that we're using today has the sauce going for 35 minutes. So it's not that big a difference, but if I weren't going to use the lemon juice, I would go with the thyme for the lowest acid food, which would be the onions and garlic. So that's my 2 cents. All right. It actually works much better than I remembered. All right, I'm going to put all the garlic, a little piece of aluminum foil, drizzle of avocado oil. It doesn't have to be wrapped up tight. I'm not doing it for a long time, just long enough to get it a little roasty. All right, so I'm going to put these in the oven. I have the oven preheated to 375, and we'll let them go until they're translucent and starting to get a little bit roasty. All right, it is time for the drawing to see who wins the grow lights. So I put all these names on little pieces of paper, and we're going to let David do the drawing.
All right, nobody get mad at me if you lose, and if you win, that's good.
Close your eyes, reach in there, pick one.
My eyes are open.
Your eyes are open.
Okay, they're closed.
Okay.
There you go.
Ken Kromenacker. Hooray! Congratulations, Ken. If you will leave me a message down below, I'll get you my email address, and we will connect and see how quickly I can get those grow lights to you. Congratulations. Thanks so much.
So now you can have lettuce all year round like I do.
That's right.
Right, sweetie?
All right. Thanks. Back to the video now.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, so I'm going to take these out of the bag, slip the skins off that come off easily. Otherwise, I don't care about the skins at all. So I'm going to do them in a bowl through a colander. So I'm going to save some of the juice that comes out of these to just help, just in case I need it, so I'm not adding water if I need any extra liquid in there, especially when they're getting started. I don't want anything to stick to them. All right, so when I put these in the, ooh, they are still cold, super duper cold. When I put these in the freezer, it was October. So these are the ones, these are the tomatoes that were still green. Some of them were blushing, and you could tell the color difference in those that were blushing toward the end of the season, just before our last frost. So because of that, you know, I have a lot that are, I don't know if you can really see that, hopefully you can. It's not, it's red, but it's not like a good vine ripened red kind of look to it. So because of that, I am going to add some tomato sauce. You know, this one was good. This one probably came off, you know, at least blushing and finished ripening. Did a good job. But I'm going to add some tomato paste. Actually, I'm going to add it for a couple of reasons. One is to make sure I have enough good, deep, rich tomato flavor in these, and the other is so I can thicken it up rather than cooking it down, if that makes any sense. So I'm going to make hopefully a 2-year supply of tomato sauce out of this. I'd rather have the liquid in there, whatever these produce, not cook it down so far. So I will add enough tomato paste to make that happen. These skins, I don't know if I'm going to peel all these skins off, because I really don't mind them at all, and they do help to thicken the sauce. But I will peel off some that I can dehydrate and turn into tomato powder for later. So that's what I'm working on now. So if you saw my kind of debrief from the pantry challenge in January, I've always felt like I used so much tomato sauce, and I needed to grow so many tomatoes because I need to make all this tomato sauce. And tomato sauce takes a lot more tomatoes than than a salsa or diced tomatoes or something, obviously. So when we did the pantry challenge, turns out that's not really the case. At least in that month that I have been watching. Quite frankly, because when I did here's the thing. When I did the pantry tour, which was, I don't know, was that November, maybe? I had three jars of tomato sauce on the shelf. And today, I have 3 jars of tomato sauce on the shelf. So I'm really not using a whole lot at all. So we're gonna see. But I don't intend to make sauce next year unless, something changes and we end up only eating tomato sauce for a while. But I just don't think that's going to happen. I think I'm going to use all my tomatoes for chopped tomatoes, diced tomatoes, whatever you call them, roasted tomatoes, and salsas, and maybe a tomato jam, and a few other things I have in mind. But we'll see how that goes. Alright, so when I put my tomatoes in the freezer, I go ahead and cut off the top or dig out the core, whichever happens to be less time consuming at the moment. And then when you get them, they just slide right off. I'm not tugging on the core. I'm not ending up with a core in my sauce that I'm just gonna whir around with an immersion blender. I don't want any bits and pieces of core. So a lot of people don't mind that. I don't know. I do. I'm one of those who, when I open a can of commercially canned tomatoes that are diced, and there are little bits of core in there. I mean, it could just be, I don't want that piece. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one who does that. All right, I'm gonna get all of these in here, at least the ones I can, start being able to use my roaster pan. All right, I think I have all the skins skins I'm gonna bother getting, quite frankly. Just use these skins to help thicken up our sauce. All right. Can you hear the boys downstairs? I can hear them pretty clearly. They're doing the one-up thing that boys tend to do. Put this extra juice in a measuring cup. Starting to smell the onions and garlic, so that's a good sign. All right, those last couple of bags, that's probably enough liquid in there so that I don't burn, but I do have plenty left just in case I need it. I'm gonna get these started. My roaster pan is off camera over here, so it's probably a good thing because I'm about to lift 37.5 pounds of tomatoes and try to get them in there. So I'll be back in a sec. Okay, so I have the tomatoes in the roaster pan. I have it set at 350 and I have the lid off for now. I'm gonna be putting those onions in as soon as they come out. Some little tomato peels. That if I don't throw them into the sauce later to thicken it up, I will go ahead and dehydrate those and turn them into a tomato powder for later. The onions and garlic are smelling fantastic, so I think that means it's time to get them out of the oven and into the bathtub with the tomatoes. So let's do that. All right, I'm going to slip this batch right in. We'll come back and deal with that garlic. All right, let's take a look at this garlic. All right, nice and toasted in there. I'm so excited. Put these in and I'll bring you over and show you what it's looking like in there. Shot of it because it's in such a weird position. But here's the garlic, the roasted garlic, onions obviously. So I'm going to let this go now for quite some time. I'm going to leave the lid off and then we'll come back and check on it every so often. And hopefully one of these days we'll have some sauce. All right, I managed to get you over in this corner here where I can put my roasting pan. So I think what I'm going to do is blend it up a little bit and kind of see where we are. If you have watched any of my videos all the way to the end, you may have seen some bloopers. What happens when I use a stick blender. So it doesn't always go well. So we are going to hope for the best and prepare for the worst here. Let's see what I can get done.
All those little moments, the bites you didn't catch me looking over your shoulder, just at the right time. Those little moments all led me to you, only God knew about. All those little moments.
All right, I'm gonna leave the stick blender right over here because you know we're gonna come back and do that a few more times. But let's see how we're looking. Still some hunks of tomatoes in there, but it's really looking pretty good. Now again, if you don't like the seeds or the skins, you can run it through a mill and get those out, but that just doesn't bother me at all. All right, it has been a couple of hours now, and this has reduced it down an inch and a half, maybe 2 inches. So as I mentioned, I don't want to lose too much sauce to evaporation, so I'm going to go ahead and add some tomato paste. I went downstairs to check on the boys in the canning pantry to see what they were getting into because they've been so noisy. And you should see the scaffolding that they have going on down there. It's like, you hear that? That's what I've been listening to all day long. So it's like Tim the Toolman Taylor times 2 down there. The two get together and it's just, there's no telling. I'm going to put 2 cans of tomato paste in. We'll stir it up and let that go a little while longer. All right, so I'm going to let this cook down maybe another hour or so. We'll see where we are, and we'll give it another good grinding with the hand mixer here. And then hopefully we'll be ready to go. All right, so it's been another hour and a half or so, and it is really condensing. I've just put some garlic powder in it because I didn't feel like I had enough garlic for this large of a batch. I'm going to add the salt and the sugar, and we'll give it a taste. It'll be pretty thick. I'm thinking I have probably, this is a 22-quart roaster oven, so I don't know, perhaps 16, 15 quarts in here. That's a lot of tomato sauce. So I'm thinking what I'm going to do is make 2 products out of this. So I think I'll take about half of it and do it kind of as a crushed tomato, what I would normally call my tomato sauce. And then I think I'll go ahead and I'll just make some spaghetti sauce. David thinks he would like that a lot, so I don't know whether we'll do that in quarts or pints. We'll see how that goes. But I think that's my plan. And then for the spaghetti sauce, I'm going to put it in the Vitamix, and we're just going to grind it up so that we don't have the seeds. I don't mind the seeds, but if I'm going to do a special different sauce, may as well do something special and different about it. So let's get some salt in here. So the recipe calls for a teaspoon, let me look here. Yeah, 1 teaspoon for 10 pounds of tomatoes. So I have 37.5, so almost 4 teaspoons. So this is a tablespoon. I'm going to start with that. So it should technically be about 4 teaspoons, so a little bit over a tablespoon. And then I'm going to put some sugar in here. It calls for the same amount, 1 teaspoon for each 10 pounds of tomatoes. So I'm just going to start with a tablespoon. And if I need to add more, I'll add more. It looks beautiful. All right, let's take a little taste. Ooh, that's really pretty good. That's really good. I'm going to add a smidge more sugar. And then I think that this is ready to go for the crushed tomatoes. All right, a little bit more sugar. All right, I'm gonna get my jar set up and my canner's heating, and then we'll be ready to can this up, and I'll bring you back over where we can actually see what's going on. Beautiful. All right, let's get some jars loaded. Finally, my kitchen is an absolute wreck, so there's just no two ways around it on a big canning day like today. I'm gonna start with a tablespoon of lemon juice in each of these jars. I have 8 jars here because I'll load the electric canner first. And then we should fit 10 jars in my All-American canner back on the stove. We'll do those filled with what I'm now calling crushed tomatoes, probably more appropriately named. And then we'll fill whatever's left, we'll turn into a seasoned spaghetti sauce. Something I would actually open the jar, throw in some meat, put it on pasta, and call it done. All right, remember, as I said, you don't want to use the lemon juice or the citric acid. Make sure you follow the safe canning instructions for the lowest acid we have here, which is the onions. So that would be 40 minutes. I'm going to do 35 minutes on these, and I actually like the acid in there. All right, so let's get these loaded.
You was like giving me another chance. Thank God that you said hi, 'cause I was way too shy. What would have happened if you just had passed me by the night? We keep on drinking, keep on wishing for someone out there to love. All those little moments, goodbye, she didn't catch me looking over my shoulder.
I'm going to debubble. I actually think I'm over my half-inch headspace on a couple of these. Okay, now let's clean up. Just white vinegar. We're feeling for any cracks in the jars. Whether they're new or used, you would always want to make sure, check for any cracks. Get anything off the rim that could interfere with the seal. As you can see, even though I can't see it on the jar, you can see it on the paper towel. There's just always, at least with me, messmaker that I am, there's always going to be something there. Lots of something there. All right, I'm gonna get some new lids on these. I use, as you know, where are they? The 4 jars canning lids. I'll put a link down below with a discount code for 10% off. If you haven't ordered your lids yet for the canning season, you really need to do that. We're starting to see seeds disappear. Next will be jars and lids disappear. So stock up on your jars, stock up on your lids. These lids are significantly less expensive than ball lids in my grocery store, and frankly they do a better job of sealing than ball has done for me lately. I always like to check my ring. Sometimes a ring gets away from me and it has some rust, or it has some kind of particle or something left from when I washed them after the last canning. So just always double check. Get rid of those immediately if they're not perfect, because heaven knows we all have plenty of rings. All right, so there's the first jar going in. Crushed tomatoes. My canner is hot, my jars are hot, my tomatoes are hot. They look really pretty. So when you do your tomato sauce, do you just automatically turn it into spaghetti sauce? Do you do it seasoned for Italian and keep it on the shelf? I buy spaghetti sauce. I've just always, when I've canned it, myself, I've just always done plain, well, basically what you're seeing here is pureed tomatoes. Say that I have more flexibility, but it'll be fun to have this on the shelf, I think. I'm going to grab some more tomatoes, get all these loaded in, and then we'll move on to the next canner. All right, now it's perfect. Oh, canner's hot. See that I'm holding the lid in place when I turn it on, because if at all possible, I like to try to get the top of this lined up with the front of the jar. I don't know, just because I think it looks better when they're all lined up perfectly. But you do need to be careful not to poke in the hole. You don't want that hole, the lump. You don't want the center concave in there before you can it. Okay, 8 jars in there, ready to go. I have filled my jars. Now it's going to heat them up. I'm going to go ahead and put the lid on. Around here so you can see this. I'm going to get this lid put on. What you want to do with an electric canner, the Presto anyway, is check to make sure that the seal is firmly in there, because it can slip out and then you won't get a good seal on the canner. So make sure that that is firmly down in there. I don't use a Presto stovetop, but I understand it's pretty much a similar thing to what you have to do there. Okay. This down. The vent is on. We're heating. All right, the electric canner is on and doing its thing. I'm going to get the other canner loaded, and then we'll come back when it's time to make the actual spaghetti sauce. All right, let's turn this into spaghetti sauce. I think I probably have 7, maybe 8 pints in here. So we're going to season it up. They suggest oregano, black pepper, and red pepper flakes. So I'm going to use some of that, and then probably add some basil as well, because that's one of our favorites. Probably just a little bit over 1 original batch here of this. So they suggest 1½ teaspoons of oregano. So that's about half a tablespoon. We'll do a teaspoon of pepper. So about 1/3 of a tablespoon. I'm going to put in a pinch of red pepper flakes. And I like a lot of basil in mine. So I may do, I'll call it 2 teaspoons. And frankly, I might come back and add to that. So let's take a look at what we have now. Trade off the spoon. So I have both canners full with the crushed tomatoes. The electric canner is a little bit ahead of the other one. Good thick sauce. Pretty good. I'm going to add a little more oregano and a little more basil. These will intensify as they can. You need to keep that in mind when you're doing it. I added about 2 teaspoons of oregano. I'll add a couple of teaspoons of basil. I think I I might add just a pinch more sugar. Because I am going to put some lemon juice in this. So half a teaspoon. Here's the All-American canner starting up. Oh, that's perfect. Okay, this is excellent. So I'm going to put the lid on and let this continue to simmer until I have a canner free, and then we'll load that up and get some spaghetti sauce done. All right, the crushed tomatoes are out of the canner, actually out of both canners. So let's move on to the spaghetti sauce. And then I have a bonus for you. I figured out a way to use the tomato liquid that I had here. It was probably 10 cups. So I'll show you what I did with that after we get the sauce bottled up. So again, I have hot jars, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. That's a little more than a tablespoon. My sauce thickened up a good bit while I was waiting for one batch to come out. So I think it's going to be really nice to mix with some diced tomatoes when I go to make my sauce. Just pour liquid it all in there. Again, I'm going to do a 1/2 inch headspace. All right, we'll go ahead and get these in. I'm going to get the rest of the spaghetti sauce canned up, and then I'm going to show you the bonus that I made. We had some for dinner, and I'm going to can up the rest. See you in a minute. All right, now here's the bonus I promised you. Remember the tomato liquid that I saved out? There's maybe 9 cups, maybe 10 cups. Well, I added 4 cans of tomato paste to that and blended it up, and then added some salt and some basil, and I made tomato soup. So I think this is going to be an easy grab and go soup. You can add the coconut cream when you cook it or when you serve it or not. Well, it was a late night last night, so it's now the next morning. I have 30 jars that came out of the canner, so I'm really happy with that. So I have, this is, I'll say, my bonus one is the prettiest. This is the tomato soup. Came out wonderfully. So we had 3 pints of that, and my husband and I each had a serving last night, so call that 5 pints, roughly, is what I made. And this is the spaghetti sauce. It looks really good. A couple of jars had some siphoning, but most of them look really good. And this one, the tomatoes, you can see there's some siphoning there as well, but that'll be just fine. You know, siphoning happens when there is too much of a temperature change. And, you know, I don't know, it happens in maybe 1 jar every now and then in a canner, and nothing else happens around it. So it was probably a headspace issue in a couple of the ones that that did show some siphoning. So, you know, it happens. But it's okay. Everything is sealed, and you know, I don't have anything stuck. I don't have anything stuck in the between the lid and the jar. So they are a little sticky. So I'm going to get them cleaned up and labeled and down in the canning pantry. So let's talk about what it costs to put 30 jars on the shelf of tomato products. I used, these are what I call bonus tomatoes. These are the ones that are green. They're still on on the plant, and the, says it's gonna be 24 degrees overnight, and you have to go pick everything. So that's what these were. They ripened on my dining room table. As soon as they turned reddish, I stuck them in the freezer. They weren't beautifully vine ripened tomatoes or anything like that. These are just the bonus. So I bought 1 bag of onions from Costco. I think I used all but one in there, so that was $5.99, $6. I had 1 bowl of garlic. I would have had a lot more had Costco had the peeled bag that I wanted, but let's call that $1. And then I had, with all of this, I used 5 cans of tomato paste. Now the soup itself used 3. I mean, that was basically tomato paste based, right? Along with the tomato juices. So that's 5 cans, so $5 there, plus the $6 from the onions and the $1 from the garlic, so $12. I have 30 jars that are going on my shelf right now. So today's economy, that's pretty good, so I'm very happy with that. So if you're not canning your homemade tomato products yet, I hope that you will. And we'll do a lot of it coming up this summer when the tomatoes start rolling in. So thanks so much. I'm glad you were here. See you soon. Bye-bye. Another piece of garlic. I stepped on it. Doesn't matter. I'm just gonna put these in here. I just squirted the heck out of myself. All right, I'm gonna clean up just a little bit, and when those that's what the boys are doing downstairs.